With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Today, we're going to be uncovering the infamous Smurl family case, the case that is now inspiring the latest Conjuring House film. Is it true or is it fiction? Let's figure it out. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal investigators who live in the most haunted city on Earth, Savannah, Georgia.
Whether we're in the studio
or out in the field,
we hunt for the stories and experiences where the veil feels thin.
Shout out to our Parajunkie family on Patreon. This show is only possible with you.
And remember, this is a judgment-free circle. Your experiences matter, your questions are welcome, and the weird is normal.
So cut the lights, turn the volume up, and journey with us into the most haunted city on Earth. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on Earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And I'm Chimes.
No.
I'm
Not
back.
the return of Chimes.
No.
I'm back. I'm going to do it again.
Last time Chimes destroyed our sound.
The Chimes did destroy our
Shoot, you're
sound.
not kidding. Well, Chimes also put new XLR cables in the entire studio. So.
No, don't encourage it.
Yeah.
Do not encourage this.
Junkies are all like, oh, Chimes is back. I love Chimes.
Great. Well,
You're like, goodness gracious.
swell. This JT, can I have my run a show real quick?
Oh, yeah, to run a show. My bad.
Thank you.
Here we go.
He's too busy thinking about his chimes effect.
Chimesing it up.
But anyways, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about the Smurl family case today. But before we get into it, we have a few quick announcements. First off, we want to thank some new Parajunkies. I have a laundry list of y'all, so bear with me here. But we want to thank Eris, Ray, Alan T, Josh, Elizabeth, Gina, Terry A. Davis, Chrissy G, Amanda A, Christine B, Michelle G, Mousy or Mossy 88, Hannah, Alex, Jessica C, Tara D, and Lonnie C.
Thank y'all so much,
Thank
and
y'all so
welcome
much.
to the Parajunkie fam.
Yes,
Whoop, whoop.
thank y'all so much for joining
Oh, I
us.
have an air horn.
We're immune to these sounds because we don't have headphones on.
We don't know what they sound like, but they're there, so enjoy that.
But it's fun watching JT listen to them.
Absolutely. But yeah, so thank y'all so much. Patreon is definitely the best way to support us, to keep the podcast growing, to get us to places to investigate, all that good stuff.
Yes,
So
I just bought us new XLR cord.
yes, because our XLR cords crapped out on us.
They've had enough.
So they've had enough.
ghosts.
One did, but I was like, while we're doing this,
You might as
let's
well.
just do
Absolutely.
it. Because they were the same exact XLR cables from 2022. Yeah, I know.
Well, now we have Nickelodeon slime green XLR
Yeah,
cables.
they are. They're very Ghostbuster slime.
I like them.
Yeah, they're fun. But yeah, so welcome everybody to the new Parajunkies, and I know some of y'all are actually on the live stream, so thank you. But also, we have another couple of announcements. Our next investigation is scheduled for September 29th. We're going to be investigating the Mars Theater in Springfield, Georgia, which is another haunted historic theater. And if you watched our investigation at the Rylander, we actually ended up getting like a little Easter egg that we did not intend, but from the ghosts.
That's true.
They mentioned Springfield in
They're
Chris's...
showing their hand. Oh, well, and it's even more intriguingly, now that we've
opened up this discussion of doing the Mars Theater, I've had 3 other Springfield locations pop up with like, oh, this place is crazy haunted.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
So
So-
we might be spending a
Springfield,
little more
Georgia?
time in Springfield.
Yes.
I liked it last time I went.
Yeah,
It's really nice.
It's cute.
It
it's,
is.
It's absolutely Americana small town.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Like it has that feel 100%.
And so we're really excited to go do the investigation. After we do the investigation, if you want to go visit it, if you're in the general region around Savannah-ish, because it's about 45 minutes outside of Savannah, they're doing a haunted house in the month of October. So you could also go visit the haunted theater as well and see what you find while getting scared by actors.
I'm actually doing a live ghost story event on October 17th
So there you go.
Oh, nice.
at the Mars Theater.
Yes. So
Very cool, very
there you go. Lots of fun things happening. And if you haven't seen the Rylander episode that we put up, that is also linked down below. So you can go watch that while you're waiting for this next content coming out, if you will.
Nope.
But also, if you live in the Savannah general region, we are basically putting out the word that the Savannah Chatham County Animal Services is doing an event for the entire month of September. Every Sunday, they are waiving all adoption fees for all dogs, cats, all the critters. So if you are in the market for a new pet and you live in the general region, you could get yourself a free puppy or a free cat. Who knows? But if you can't make it on a Sunday, the adoption center is also open from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. every day of the week except for Wednesdays. And the address is 7211 Sally Mood Drive, Savannah, Georgia. So
Nice.
go save some cute little animals if you're in the market. But other than that,
Let's jump into it.
yeah, do I have any other announcements? Nope. Okay, great. Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the Smurl family case. This one's interesting, y'all. So there is a lot of conversation around this case at the moment just because, one, the new Conjuring movie just came out. And the surviving members of the Smurl family, they are not entirely thrilled with the storyline that they chose to go with The Conjuring Last Rites. Because they definitely deviated from their original story.
And probably worth stating right here and now, all the Conjuring movies are guilty of deviating
Absolutely.
from,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
from the
Yeah.
source material. And that's something that when you talk about the difference between adaptation and just, straight up, inspiration, these stories are far more inspired by true stories than they are adaptations of true stories. But the weird thing is how much trouble the writers and producers went through to interview everyone involved,
Right.
to get as many of the salient facts of the events down, only to ignore them or alter them beyond recognition.
Yeah, and so that was the major point I think some of the family members made, is that they felt like, because the writers came to them and said, we want to tell your story, but that was not the case. So with that being said, you're going to hear the full story here, and maybe when you go to watch the Conjuring film, you could see what they kept, what they didn't keep, and all that jazz. But yeah, so this is also a case that is highly regarded when it comes to studying Ed and Lorraine Warren as well, so they'll come up quite a bit in this episode. But first off, here's a photo of the property. It looks creepy. Not the nicest little house in the world, but it'll do. And I can't imagine living in it with as many people as they had. So
This is in Pitson,
Pitson,
Pennsylvania. They do love their pits.
Yes.
In
West Pitson.
West Pitson.
So the Smurls, in August of 1973, they moved into this double block house on Chase Street in West Pitson, Pennsylvania, after they lost their home in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, due to flood damage from Hurricane Agnes, which, being in the South, we understand how that goes. But here's some other little photos of them. But Janet and Jack Smurl, along with their young daughters and Jack's parents, John and Mary, relocated to the Chase Street duplex. It was a bit of a fixer-upper, which, if you saw the photo, that shows. But they ended up putting a lot of effort into repainting, retooling, and making repairs in general. Jack was a neuropsychiatric technician with prior Navy service, and he invested all of his savings into this project. And as we're going through this, a lot of people draw comparisons to this case to the Amityville case, and I will definitely agree with that. So just bear that in mind as well. But however, the family barely had time to settle into their new life before the existing residents of the house informed them that they were not welcome there. And these residents were not alive. They were spirit residents. And that was mostly when the time of the activity began. So initially, the episodes were benign, which anytime you're looking at a case that has some kind of demonic presence to it, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
It oftentimes mimics sort of a poltergeist sort of activity, which it's very classic poltergeist with the beginning stages. Some of the tools would go missing, and then they reappeared out of nowhere. Old wall stains seep through the fresh coats of paint, which I hate. That sounds awful.
Yeah. Especially when you're renovating.
Yeah. Well, and the kitchen appliance, one of the kitchen appliances actually caught fire even though it was unplugged.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pate. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's some pushy ghosts.
That's
right
a
there.
pushy ghost. Also, that takes a lot of energy for an entity to make a fire happen.
Again,
And so,
try making a fire happen with your brain.
exactly.
And that's how hard it is.
Right. Along with that, though, they would have unexplainable noises and sudden odors that were reminiscent of sulfur and rotting flesh, and it would overwhelm the house before disappearing abruptly, which is like telltale sign of a demonic presence. And as we always say, when we use demonic, we're using it as a catch-all term, meaning malevolent entity. And in this case, it's often associated with demonic entities. So, just bear that in mind. But the sulfur smell is like number one instance that anytime you hear about a demonic stage starting to progress, you're going to hear that sort of same symptom.
I mean, the general belief is that hell smells like sulfur.
Right, which is terrible.
Right.
I mean, which would make sense for hell, but regardless.
Brimstone. So fun. Brimstone.
But at first, the home seemed to be a good move for the family. Jack was promoted at work. The kids were excelling in school. The in-laws were happy. But that didn't last long because soon the Smurls were struggling to make ends meet. And that was mostly because they put all their money into fixing this house. Now, Mary, Jack's mother, she ended up actually suffering a heart attack in the house.
Oh, wow.
And the ghostly visits, meanwhile, intensified after that instance. So Mary and Janet, before Mary passed away, they claimed to have heard voices that sounded similar. Janet believed that she heard her mother-in-law calling her name, while Mary thought she heard Janet and Jack engaged in a heated argument filled with profanity. Which is, it's classic mimicry, which can also be a demonic entity utilizing that to pit other members of the family against each other. Because that's the best way to break down a family, to let its control sort of overbear everything, is to make everybody hate each other. It's the best way to do it. But they also claim to see ominous black masses that formed and floated throughout the house. And what started as a spooky nuisance, it gradually escalated into horrific acts of violence that spread across the better part of a decade. They dealt with this for a decade.
A whole decade with a demon?
I mean, they were
Hashtag decade with a
financially
demon.
tied into this. They had nowhere else to go. So very similar to the other Conjuring case as well,
Yep.
because they also financially could
Not move.
Yeah,
There's nothing they could do.
exactly.
Lord.
But the attacks intensified when Janet gave birth to twins, Karen and Shannon. So something about that new life really irritated this entity.
Sure.
Especially towards Janet. But the supernatural abuse culminated in sexual assault on both Jack and Janet Smurl by a succubus, which was later revealed. And Janet recounted an experience of being visited in the dead of night by a malevolent force that subjected her to a horrific act of sexual assault while she slept. Then Jack started experiencing the same horror. Lying in bed with Janet, he heard a young woman whispering, and when he turned his face to his wife, he noticed a shadowy figure running up her leg.
Goodness
Yeah.
gracious.
And after that night, life in the Smurl house grew darker. And there's a photo, too, that was captured of chairs kind of levitating in the room.
Probably one of the more famous photos of the case.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a real photo.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. It's and that's the difficult thing about this case is there's a lot of questions of whether or not this case actually happened, much like the Amityville case, which we did come to find out was completely a hoax because the family also was hurting for money. So I think that's where the big line gets drawn there is because they
Cashing
were
in on that.
Right,
You know,
on their experience.
particular- Yeah.
Exactly.
And that also, there's regard to the idea that there may have been something seated there, but they played it up to such a degree.
Right.
So you're constantly like going, well, you know, because of the historic events of the Amityville house, because those things did happen, that there was a brutal mass murder in that house. And you're like, it's hard to imagine there not being some haunted bit, but because of the level of commercialism that was
Right.
involved in the selling of the story, you're like, we may never know.
Exactly. And that really is. So at this point, though, with these cases, I tend to find it's best to leave them as just stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're interesting whether they really happened or not. They
Well,
are
they
fascinating.
Impact a society's ability to accept a ghost story or accept the supernatural. There's definitely something to be said about the fact that these struck a nerve. I want to say there was like a TV movie about the Smurls haunting.
There
at one
was,
point.
yep.
And when you reach a point at which people's interest is that, invested, then you're dealing with some kind of consciousness that we all share and that we all are being, directed towards. So when somebody's telling a ghost story, these aspects of it that really get under our skin, they might be more accurate than we know. Even when we start dismissing the stories as fictions, it's like, oh, but wait, what got our attention?
Right.
What made us
Yeah.
pay such attention?
Absolutely. And here's a photo, too, of the parents with their twin daughters, Karen and Shannon. But the night of their daughter Heather's confirmation, which Heather is one of the other children of the Smurl family, on April 9th, 1985, Janet, Shannon, and Heather were in the kitchen with Janet pinning the collar onto Heather's confirmation robe. And suddenly, a light affixed to the ceiling with 2 chains and several eye hooks into the beam crashed down onto the kitchen table without warning. It was very frightening because it was unexpected, and it wasn't like a light that had broken naturally, Janet recalled. And it didn't tip, it didn't sway, it just came crashing down. It gouged Shannon in the forehead and left a mark on the refrigerator.
Jeez.
But one of the Smurl daughters also was pushed down a flight of stairs. The Smurl's 75-pound German Shepherd was thrown against the wall.
What?
Yeah. Which
It's hurting the dogs?
that's not uncommon with demonic cases, because if you look at it like a bunch of different cases that we've covered, the dogs tend to get
tends
injured.
to get an injury, yeah.
Probably because the dog can detect
Yes.
Yeah,
the demon.
exactly.
And it's like, I got to eliminate this. It's going to, throw off my groove.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the animals are the most capable, I will say, of perceiving an entity, especially in
the
a
first
house.
line of defense
Right.
oftentimes is an animal.
And so, yeah, it would make sense that an entity would be like, don't perceive me. And then,
It's
dog
actually
goes
common
into the wall.
practice in covert ops to kill all the dogs in a region
Ooh,
on the night of assault.
Jeez.
I did not know this.
I
Chris,
did not know that either.
Chris fact of the day. There you go. But Janet recounted also being picked up by an invisible presence, which dangled her 6 feet in the air before being tossed across the room. And Jack claimed a succubus entered the living room and sexually assaulted him in a certain way while a baseball game played on the TV. And Jack also talked about being attacked while praying. So, along with that, an accordion-style closet door in Jack and Janet's bedroom would open and shut rapidly on its own. The family stated hearing loud banging and pounding in threes, and items would go missing
boy.
afterwards. Even neighbors reported hearing screams from the house while the family was out, which I think is really interesting. But
That is actually like super interesting.
Yeah, that neighbors are also kind of experiencing this.
Yeah.
But according to the 2020 documentary Devil's Road, The True Story of Ed and Lorraine Warren, Jack and Jan reported that their bed trembled and they witnessed a dark shadow lurking in their bedroom. And in another instance, Janet was reportedly dragged out of bed, and on a different night, the couple levitated as high as the ceiling, Ed recalled, which is all like very classic Hollywood.
No, and this happened
possession.
within 10 years?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're hitting all the highlights of it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, that is some cases can be different, but a lot of times when you're dealing with a demonic possession of some sort, whether it be the house or a person or whatever, it doesn't all happen within the span of one night, which we like to do for cinema purposes because tis the point.
Or we truncate it into like a week or a matter of days. It is oftentimes the case of years and years, and in many cases, it's not acknowledged early on. Like a lot of the things that happen are either suppressed or just not acknowledged at all. It's like, oh yeah, I kept losing my keys, or oh yeah, I kept having this issue or that issue. It's not straight to poltergeist activity. It's not straight to banging and things disappearing. So these are again classically Hollywood style antics, which especially of the period, keep in mind this is like mid 70s to early 80s. This is when there was a craze in Hollywood to tell exorcism stories, to tell, Amityville Horror became a movie in this period of time. And it became like, the news at the time. So you're inundated with expectations of haunting, which actually could be what causes the manifestation of those behaviors because all of society expects it. So it is, we have an open forum to discuss that. Is it possible that because an entire nation was sitting around thinking that this is what's going down, if there are spirits out there who are receptive to that kind of influence, maybe the public opinion of, well, this is how demons behave, and these spirits are going, oh, I guess I got to do it.
Yeah, this is
Looks
how
like
I get
what
the
I gotta
reaction.
do. I gotta go poke this guy in the eye. Poke.
Lift the bed.
Shake the bed. You're up on the ceiling. These are. It's an open thing. I'm actually very interested in the notion of how public perception of spirits coincide with these kinds of cases.
I mean, absolutely. I could totally believe that. Because typically these entities feed off of what scares you. They want the biggest reaction that they can get out of you to continue growing and breaking you down, breaking your will
in this
down.
Realm,
right?
That is an anchor point for a spirit. If you are interacting and reacting in any way, they are participating in our realm, in our world, and that is the highest order for these spirits. What they want to achieve and what they want is a place at the table, and our fear and our interaction and reaction is a place at the table.
Exactly. But what they don't like is when you seek help.
No.
So now this is kind of where it gets muddy in the case because there's a lot of back and forth of different people saying that these things happened, these things didn't happen from priests and all sorts of people. So bear with me because I tried to make sense of the timeline here, but it's a little jumbled, which does not help the case for its validity. But nonetheless, So in the desperation for answers, the Smurls repeatedly reached out to the Catholic Church, apparently. And here's a photo of one of the priests coming to visit the home. And so despite a series of priests visiting the home and performing a multitude of blessings, the evil forces haunting this family remained undeterred, which is not uncommon. Because when you're dealing with entities of this magnitude, especially if it's really entrenched into this family's life, into this property, sometimes a simple house blessing doesn't do the trick, and sometimes it just agitates the entity.
Absolutely. And again, we're talking about attention. You've brought in an official capacity into the playing area, and that can just reinforce the idea that the spirit's on the right path.
Right.
Because you brought new people in to have the experiences. And ritualistic behaviors, they do work provided that everyone is kind of in sync with the ritual. It is a matter of your faith overcoming the faith of the spirit that you are contending with. And that can be difficult.
Absolutely. One of the quotes from Janet when she was on Larry King Live, we went to our local priest and said, "Father, there's something very strange going on here." So he came over, he blessed the home and said, "There's no one here who can help you," which is a horrible thing for a priest to say.
I was about to say, dude.
That's terrible. That's like not what anybody wants to hear from priests in this
He left the priesthood and became an accountant.
Right. Meanwhile, the locals began to harbor sort of a resentment towards the negative attention that this home was getting, leading to harassment from neighbors who accused the family of being greedy charlatans seeking quick wealth. So very similar to Amityville.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
and you got to imagine this is happening and unfolding at the same time that Amityville is being brought into question. Because even at the time, even though Amityville was this huge success, there was plenty of people who were on the side of this can't be true. This is obvious. It's too convenient how the book deal and the movie deal and everything just fell into place right on time. And of course, Ed and Lorraine Warren were notorious for stepping in right at the moment the camera flashes to create the notion of they were kind of like akin to ambulance chasers in a lot of ways from the public view. There's if there's an opportunity to cash in on this kind of thing, they'll be there. And it's like, I don't know which came first, the grift or the recognition of a pattern.
Absolutely. And we're about to talk about the Warrens' involvement. But this was all despite these Smurls never profiting from the haunting or any of its adaptations, which is really interesting to note.
It does put a very interesting bent on it because they could have easily sued, right? They could have easily followed for all of these things. But I think that there's a story about a family exhausted and a family wishing that the story of their suffering were known.
Exactly. And the incidents that would happen with the neighbors, some of these confrontations actually escalated into violence, with strangers even throwing bricks at the house to intimidate the family, to get them to stop pushing this narrative almost. But if they are actually dealing with some kind of malevolent force, that's not helping the situation.
Or it's a direct indication that there is a malevolent force.
Ooh, that's
that
interesting.
It is inspiring people to behave violently. It's inspiring people to interact with them in such sour and dark ways. It's kind of like a Horcrux.
Right.
You're next to something that's emanating a darkness, and that darkness starts to infect all the things around it. So having neighbors suddenly turning into these bitter, angry people, losing all compassion for what these people might be going through and turning to violence as the solution, that also fits with demonic oppression.
Right. Honestly, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. But so during the end stages of this case, that was when, very much so like Chris was saying, that was when Ed and Lorraine Warren stepped in. So the family was terrified. They were very isolated in their community by this entity in their home, but also by the people around them. So the Smurls ended up getting contacted by Ed and Lorraine Warren in January of 1986. Contacted, meaning that they did not reach out to them, which is interesting. The Warrens had previously assisted the mother of a local professor with her own supernatural problems, which subsequently recommended the Smurls to the Warrens. So obviously, if you're living in the same area, and this case was huge at that point, so it would make sense that'd be like, hey, you guys are the spooky people. These people are clearly having issues. Go see them. And that was a really common thing for Ed and Lorraine Warren. Right. They usually were referred to somebody. But Ed and Lorraine, along with their psychic nurse friend, which was how she was described, I'm like, that's quite a title. But she was a psychic nurse, and her name was Rosemary Frueh, F-R-U-E-H.
Frueh.
Yeah.
Frueh?
Yes. And it was, according to Ed and Lorraine Warren, it was meticulously documented, the investigation that unfolded throughout 1986. So the Warrens were immediately struck by the fact that the Smurls hadn't actually created a doorway for these entities, which is interesting. They moved in and all of a sudden they had a craziness. Because typically in these cases, yes, there is like a moment of like this
classic Ouija board
right.
moment, classic, seance moment, or I removed the wax seal from the strange item moment.
Yeah, usually you can pinpoint where the incidents started occurring or what would have elicited this type of reaction, but it was just the property. They just happened to be unlucky if we're going off of the fact that this is true. They were just unlucky. But Ed Warren actually explained that the family was merely one of what he calls the chosen individuals chosen to participate in a process beyond their control. As they toured the house, Ed Warren invoked the name of Jesus and commanded the spirit to reveal itself. He claimed that the spirit in the house responded immediately. Within seconds, the room turned icy cold, Warren told the Lakeland Ledger in 1986. There was a foul stench. I would describe it as rotting flesh. Objects on the bureau started to move in front of the bureau. Gossamer threads, mucus-like smoky-type substance swirled and materialized on the mirror, spelling out filthy obscenities, telling me in no uncertain terms to get out of the house, which is very classic Ed Warren.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, Ed Warren, he was very much so... If there was an entity that was aggressive, he's going to elicit an aggressive response because he was aggressive towards them. And that's how it just went down with all of their cases. But the Warrens identified 4 distinct entities that they believe shared the house with the family. And after inspecting the house, Lorraine Warren concluded that the Smurls were sharing their home with 4 spirits, a harmless elderly woman, a young and possibly violent girl, a man who suffered and died in the house, and a demon that used the other 3 spirits to destroy the Smurl family. The demonic force fed on its victim's fear. That was the belief that the Warrens had. And between January and August of that year, the Warrens visited the Smurl family often. And Lorraine amassed several hours of audio recordings brimming with noise that they vehemently claimed was the work of the demon. They also collected a collection of notes and photographs, which, oddly enough, is not accessible to the public.
No.
It is very much so under lock and keys for this case, because, which is not uncommon for the Warrens cases, a lot of their heavy-hitting evidence is not generally made public. NESPAR, the organization that was created through the Warrens, they have a whole database, and I believe you can access some of that information through a subscription, but otherwise, it's just not very public. So it's
kind of a membership organization, and by paying for membership, you can get access to files and see evidence that other people cannot see.
Exactly. Which is its own conversation, but we're really going off of mostly interviews that the Warrens gave post this actual case being investigated. So naturally, the spirits were determined to hold on to the Smurls. So the Warrens allegedly endured frequent poltergeist activity, temperature drops, and even shadowy apparitions as they played Gregorian chants on repeat and fervently prayed for the family's safety. The Warrens attempted to vanquish the succubus with prayer, crosses, holy water, and a police officer with them for protection. Ed claimed that the demon attacked him and threw him back 10 feet, that was his quote, and was too strong for them to defeat on their own. So they approached the Catholic Church again for help, but were denied once more, which is not also uncommon with these cases because the Catholic Church has a laundry list of requirements that you have to meet before they even give you any kind of credence for it being a demonic case. But when you're looking into it, Ed took to the media to appeal to the church and asked for 2 or 3 priests to exorcise the demon. And Ed Warren was very persistent. So oftentimes he got what he wanted. And at one point, Ed claims to have discovered a message scrawled on a mirror with the demon ominously demanding that he and Lorraine leave. During this time, critics voiced already voiced that they were beginning to grow weary of this case. A lot of people were coming after the credibility of the Warrens. This one professor, Paul Kurtz, who is a philosophy professor at the State University of New York at Buffalo and the chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, he has very strong opinions of this. Quote from him: Ed and Lorraine Warren have no credentials in the scientific or parapsychological communities. He added that the Smurl story was nothing more than a hoax, a charade, a ghost story. Which, I included this because that is a part of the take of the acceptance of this story. But that is not to say that there aren't people in the paranormal fields and adjacent fields that are just going to be ornery about any case, regardless of its validity.
Well, and especially for Kurtz, the concept of being in charge, especially in a position of authority in a university system, and being in charge of something as what is the right word for it? As laudy as the scientific investigation of claims of the paranormal. If you are in charge of that, you cannot afford to just go willy-nilly on every ghost story that comes across your path, especially if it's coming with the flash and sizzle that this story is coming up with. Not to mention, even if you were to be like, I believe this, I'm going to go and investigate, you are giving credence to what is already a sensationalized story.
Right.
So even if it were a true story, adding to the fire with your name, when you're struggling for credibility in a field that doesn't have a whole lot, it's going to be difficult. So I would say you're always safer admonishing the ghost story, regardless of the evidence, than to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Right, exactly. But meanwhile, some individuals offered to provide free psychiatric and psychological assistance to the Smurls. My autocorrect called them the Smurfs.
Yay.
Could you imagine this being the Smurf village with demons?
It would be so much different story.
It really would. Who many believed were experiencing delusions or hallucinations of some sort, which that is partially why the Catholic Church and other entities like that do get weary when they're looking at cases, because
they employ psychiatrists and psychologists, they employ doctors, and they insist that there be these kinds of rundowns. So when somebody shows up demanding that priests show up to fight the devil, it's like there is a protocol. We can't, show up, fight the devil, and then find out that a person is suffering from schizophrenia or from bipolar or from depressive, delusions, anything like that, because that's only serves to damage the stance, right?
Right. Well, and it even gets into points where it's, like some molds can cause hallucinations
Absolutely.
in people and like all sorts of factors
If
like
you've got
that.
a leak in the electromagnetic field coming off of your fuse box, it can cause all kinds of disturbances
Exactly.
that are akin to a haunting.
But even though they got like a myriad of offers, the Smurls declined all of them. So instead, they and the Warrens sought the assistance of a priest to perform an exorcism at their house, as they continue to do. The priest, in fact, reportedly performed 3 unsuccessful exorcisms of the home. Janet Smurl explained that the demon traveled back and forth between the halves of the double block, because remember, this is a duplex. So it would leave their unit, depending on which
Clever
side the
demon.
Exactly, depending on which side the exorcism was taking place. That's neither here nor there, but that is what she claimed. So Reverend Gerald Mullally, the Scranton Diocese Chancellor, informed the church that they had been informed about the Smurls' troubles. However, they did not confirm whether the Smurls were being haunted by a demon. Instead, they expressed uncertainty about the nature of the situation, stating, "We don't know what it is. That's the problem. We believe what the family is telling us. It's the explanation for what they are experiencing that we are not sure of." The Warrens never reached a definitive conclusion with their investigation, which is why this case is still known as one they never truly solved. But the public pressure succeeded, leading Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who would later become Pope Benedict.
I was going to say, Ratzinger, that's the Pope.
In 2005, to assign an exorcist to the Smurl case. Ed claims that the exorcist visited the Smurls' home and performed an exorcism on the property, which has been clear ever since. A year later, Janet Smurl mentioned that the family was still experiencing some unusual issues at the home, but nothing as severe as when they had sought the Warrens' help. And then here comes the book and the media and all of that jazz, really adding to the skepticism surrounding this case. But however, as it is often the case with paranormal phenomena, skeptics expressed skepticism about the house on Chase Street being genuinely haunted. The Smurls' haunting and subsequent investigation by the Warrens became the subject of the 1986 book The Haunted, and more recently it inspired the film The Conjuring: Last Rites. As with any case that the Warrens have investigated, there is significant skepticism about the authenticity of the case and the Smurls' claims. Skeptics ended up exposing medical records proving that Jack's judgment was impaired by brain surgery conducted in 1983.
Oh, wow.
In that year, he had surgery to remove water from his brain, which is horrifying, before which he had been experiencing short-term memory loss, a problem that was likely originated with meningitis he had suffered in his late 20s. But that doesn't also, though that could be the case, doesn't make up for all the rest of the family members who are corroborating this same experience.
Unless delusions can be linked to psychic anomalies, and then it's possible that he was the cause of all the psychic trauma. It was actually radiating from him, and he was the one who was actually enacting it.
That's interesting, too. Several psychologists, including at least one theologian, argued that there were less than demonic explanations for the family's ordeal. Some skeptics pointed out the lack of independent observers to discredit the Warrens' investigation. Even the Catholic Church asserted that none of the priests who visited the property encountered anything unusual, which is also not uncommon for the Catholic Church. They keep these things very close to the chest. However, Janet Smurl was resolute in claiming that a Vatican-approved priest had conducted a series of unsuccessful exorcisms. The alleged evil entity moved from one room to another in an attempt to evade the ritual. There is an explanation for the Smurl house, but I wouldn't simply assume it is a haunting, Kurtz, the man we were talking about earlier, said. It seems to us that a great to-do has been made about it, and we wonder if it is like the Amityville horror hoax, which was based on imagination rather than an actual haunting, which are very strong claims, but that is his opinion. Now, the Warrens, it should be noted, had also claimed the Amityville haunting was authentic, which does not help their credibility in this particular case. In that case, at least, there had been a very real tragedy when Ronald DeFeo Jr. fatally shot his parents and 4 younger siblings in the Long Island home. However, in the case of the Smurl family, no explanation was offered as to why the house would be haunted in the first place. Does that necessarily confirm that the story was a hoax? No, but it certainly adds another layer of doubt to the entire situation. And additionally, a priest from the diocese who spent 2 nights at the Smurl home in October of 1986 reported that nothing unusual occurred during his stay. That is also not to say, because we have seen in other cases, entities can lay low.
Oh, absolutely.
When an authoritarian, if you will, of the spiritual matters visits the space, they can back off.
They'll behave, absolutely.
Because they don't want to be pushed out of the place that they're latching onto, which is the whole point of that.
And they can become very
there.
resentful over the implications. You know,
Right.
You show up and you're basically saying, dance for me. They can become very incredulous.
Exactly. And later that month, Reverend Joseph Adanzino, the pastor of Immaculate Conception Parish in West Pittston, shared his experiences with local media, stating that prayers had successfully banished the foul odors and violent demons from the West Pittston home and that everything had returned to normal. No member of the Smurl family has ever come forward to confirm that this story was a hoax. But what are the Smurls doing today? So the Smurl family's home is still standing in West Pittston. I don't think that you can go investigate it, but maybe you can go stand in front of it.
Right in front of it. I'm sure that's really going to make the neighbors happy.
Right, exactly. So they moved out of the home shortly after and settled back in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in 1988. Richard Brittle, the man who purchased the property after the Smurls, initially faced challenges in renting it out due to its infamous reputation, as he informed UPI. It's hurting me as far as renting the property. There is a stigma attached to the house, Brittle explained, saying that he thought the haunting claims were ridiculous. But Deborah Owens, who moved into the West Pittston property in 1988, told the Times leader that she never experienced anything unusual in the house, and a man who lived on the other side of the duplex home also said he had no strange occurrences while residing there, which does not mean that the entity didn't follow the family.
Sure.
Because it very well could have been the family being haunted and not the actual house. But Jack, the patriarch of the family, led a very quiet life after this and became a reluctant media sensation due to the hauntings. He worked for Topps Chewing Gum Company in Durea, Pennsylvania for over 30 years and remained actively involved in his local church. Jack passed away on June 22nd, 2017, as per his obituary. Janet Smurl is still alive and lives in LaPorte, Pennsylvania. As for their daughters, Heather and Dawn live private lives. Heather is a mom of 2 adult children, and today she's a teacher in Wilkes-Barre. Dawn also raised her son, Mark Glowinski II, in Wilkes-Barre. He has gone on to play as an offensive linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, New York Giants, and Indianapolis Colts, as reported by WVIA News. Similarly, Shannon has a life beyond the public eye, as evidenced by her LinkedIn profile, where she mentions she's working in health. However, she recently shared on X that her interest in the paranormal and ghost hunting remains undiminished. Karen, one of the girls who was born while they were living in this house, is a professional in the social work field, and she asserted that they did not fabricate the haunting. That we did it for fame or money is the most ridiculous statement ever. We were a normal family with normal lives that went through a tragedy and prevailed by staying strong and faithful, she told Citizen's Voice in 2016. It's everyone else that blew it up into a nightmare. We battled the demons inside and the public outside. They made it worse. Karen added, we never made money from the book or a movie. Who would want to go through all that media and public bashing? She also works as a part-time paranormal investigator, a profession she pursued as a result of the hardship she faced during her childhood.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It is pretty cool. The reason I've been involved in paranormal investigating is so no one has to go through what we did, she said. And me, they get judge-free, discreet, legitimate, honest, professional help and counseling. No one going through tragedy should be treated like we were. And again, if you want to watch the whole interview that the Warrens did, we linked it down below. But that's all we have for you on the Smurls. Not the Smurls, but the Smurls.
That was so fun. It was so interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case. And that's really at the root of all of this. Whether you believe the case happened or not, it is interesting nonetheless. But personally, I feel like we'll never truly know what happened inside those walls. We can only take the word of the family members at face value, and that's all we can do.
I believe them.
I believe them.
Well, and that's just the strength of what we do on the podcast here, is that we don't spend time worried about the hoax, whether it's a hoax or not, because there's a true and legitimate impact on the society as a whole from the telling of this story and from the observation of the story. The fact that it created these two camps of whether it was true or not is kind of secondary to the idea that we are dealing with stories that at root speak to our base fears, speak to our base spirituality, talk to us about the possibility of this kind of ruination and the possibility of salvation from this kind of ruination. So, you know, there's a lot of things to discuss about this kind of haunting. And I think that we quickly lose sight because we start gathering in camps.
Yeah.
And we start gathering in these, one side or another of a line, when we could just take it in and say, if these people did not profit off of it, and these people have not come forward to admit to lying, but still we're talking 40 plus years later, 50 years later, they are actively involved in trying to help people in this field. That tells you something.
Right.
That the grown child who experienced something in their childhood did not turn into a salesperson, did not turn their story into that best-selling book, that didn't turn their story into something else, but instead said, I would hate it if somebody went through what I went through and was treated the way I was treated. So, there's something to that, and
Absolutely.
something that's worthy of examination in that field.
Absolutely. So again, we'll never fully know, but let us know what you think of the case down below. And if you went to see the film, let us know what you think the interesting comparisons are. What do you think they should have included in the film? Anything like that down below in the comments. Also, make sure you like and subscribe and do all the things on whatever platform you're listening to. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.